presume Stefan Letter will be going on to Russell as well. Approval of agenda as our first item is everyone will call the second meeting. And is there approval of agenda or any late items to add? Okay, we're good. Has anyone had a chance to review the October 23rd, 2019 minutes and have any questions, edits, changes to that? I see them, they're fine to me. Anyone?
Steph,
Yes.
there was one thing in there that refers to a report in 2019 that was actually 2018.
Okay,
And I meant to note it, I just glossed over, I should note that today.
okay.
And I was reading through a number of old minutes, so I'll just double check.
Cove water treatment plant basis of design.
I can't tell you right now, I was reading
Okay, we'll look
through
at
all
it
this
after.
stuff last night, but it may be, it'll just be a typo
Okay.
correction later, that would be the only thing
We'll
I
still
saw.
adopt and note that comment from Murray. To jump to item 3, public comments. Do you have members of the public here? Do you have any comments outside of your specific delegation business?
Actually, before we get started, can I just introduce everybody to Patrick Graham, who is our new Director of Engineering? And maybe just get everybody to introduce themselves to Patrick around the table as well.
I'm Nick Page, I'm the chair of the
I'm Annette, I'm the Utilities Coordinator.
Ron Cliff, I'm on the committee.
Marie Steele, someone on the committee.
I'm Glenn Strahan with Urban Systems. I was the interim director of engineering prior to Patrick Trainings.
Steve Eltz from Upper Ocean View Road.
Yeah, Ron Silva with the Upper Ocean View Road project.
Patrick Graham, Director of Engineering.
I'm Ron Scher, I'm the Director of Finance.
Tanya Ross, sorry, I usually go by Tanya Brown too, but new member on the committee. New staff.
Okay, no public comments or public members attendance other than Steve and Ron, so we'll go to item 4, the delegation, and you can introduce yourselves and provide the context and work on the presentation. You have 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you. First of all, to the members of the committee, thank you very much for allowing us to speak today. We wanted to update you on where we're at with the Upper Ocean View water main project. So may I assume that everyone's familiar with the area here? We're talking about a section of Upper Ocean View Road between Jason Road and continuing along almost to the end of Ocean View Road. So who's involved in this? Steve and I were the sort of initiating proponents. Essentially, our water well went south, and after consultation with experts, we determined that we weren't going to recover from that. So our best option in our view was to request a hookup to the Cove Bay water system. So after meeting with the former superintendent of public works in late February, it was determined that we would not be able to hook up directly to the current line. So the current line running between just south of Jason Road and up to ending where we are at 1282 and 1278 is a 2-inch, what Bob called a temporary line. That temporary line being installed in about 1992. There are currently 5 lots connected to that 2-inch line. So Bob's determination was that if any further connections were to be made, the water main would have to be upgraded to a 6 or 8-inch line, consistent with what goes on south on the remainder of Upper Ocean View.
If I could interject just a second on what they've displayed there, the ones, the lots outlined in green are the ones that are already hooked up.
Correct. Yeah, so basically we'd have to upgrade the line. Initially, Bob's proposal was that we proceed on the basis of becoming developers and front-ending the costs ourselves, and then hopefully recouping some costs through a latecomer process. It was later on in, I think, April, when Raj came to us and said that we could proceed on the basis of the establishment of a local area service. So we were quite pleased with that option because, you know, certainly we're not professional developers and we don't have the financial ability to front end this. So an LAS was good news for us. Bob provided in mid-February an estimate of $110,000 total cost of this. So on that basis of that estimate, we spoke to the staff about conducting a preliminary survey, which is often conducted in other municipalities, basically to save staff's time by testing the water first. So we went out and conducted that preliminary survey in mid-June, with our main factors being 13 benefiting properties, $110,000 total cost, which would work out to a parcel tax of $600 per year over 15 years. The results of our survey of 13 potential benefiting properties were 9 owners said yes, 3 were in favor, subject to the details, and 1 was unknown. So we were quite happy with those results. A little later on, in late August, so based upon that, we submitted a formal request to establish the LAS. Municipality went to Creus Engineering to obtain a order of magnitude cost estimate, and so we got a bit of sticker shock there. It came back at $387,000, or about $388,000. So, you know, we expressed our concerns in communications, and Glenn was provided a response to our concerns. And to make a long story short, at the end of the day, we accepted that this was the estimate that we should have got in the first place, because it included all aspects of the project that should have been considered initially. So that's where we moved on, and you know, having accepted that cost estimate, we then submitted a request to staff to initiate the petition process. So Raj laid out the steps that we were going to be following through this process. So essentially, in our view, we're still at number 3 regarding identifying the parcels in the local area service. And then the remaining steps, I'm going to assume that everyone in the advisory committee is familiar with these steps in establishing an LAS. So back in May 2019, we received a designation of the benefiting properties, and it was on this map. And we received the draft petition last month in early February, and there had been some changes to the designation of benefiting properties that was made by the former superintendent back in May 2019. So this is what came with the draft petition. Excuse me, I'll just fast forward. So I'll superimpose one over the other. So where we had concerns with the designation of benefiting properties is, first off, it didn't include the unnumbered lot to the south of mine, which is labeled TBD, as in to be determined. It's a vacant lot. It's owned by my neighbor Nick. And Nick is one of the original proponents here. So he's been trying for literally decades to get water to his property. So we asked that Nick be included in there as well. And you know, we kind of missed this on the first go around, but the two lots on the northern side there, 1291 and 1288, were added. Those are fine. We've actually now spoken to those lot owners, and we believe that they would be in favor of this project. But our principal concern was with the inclusion of three currently connected lots. Those are the ones at 1274 and 1270 and 1265. So our concerns specifically are that these owners are going to vote no. They are currently connected, and they will vote no, which we are concerned that this is going to tilt the outcome towards not achieving the 50 plus 50 majority required. We're also concerned about the applicability of a section of that section 2013 of the community charter, in that the petition does not account for or make any real mention of those people that have already paid towards the cost in the past. And further, some, but not all, of the currently connected lots are designated as benefiting properties. So we're a little confused about that. Again, principally, the concern from our perspective is being able to go out and conduct a fair petition. So we really think these people are going to vote no. So we're concerned that we're not going to have a fair opportunity to conduct this petition. From the point of view of the currently connected lots, you know, we're looking at, for instance, we've consulted the Manual on Development Finance Choices Guide, and we're a little concerned on their behalf, you know, regarding these standards. And I won't dwell on that slide. So that's essentially where we're at now. I'd just like to very quickly go over the timeline of our project. We first approached the municipality back in January last year. And so it's taken us this long to get to this point. Our chief concern about the amount of time that this is taking is the cost of engineering goes up over time. One of our members is involved in the new community center, and he was describing to us how they were tracking engineering costs month by month, and that they were increasing, you know, a certain number of percentage points. So over a year, there's going to be some increase of engineering costs, and at the end of the day, it's the benefiting properties that are going to pay for this 100%. So I think our wish list going forward is that we can find some kind of equitable resolution to this issue of including the currently connected lots as equally paying benefiting properties. I'd like to note that the current petition is some communications that followed after that. There's a new total cost estimate of $500,000. So we'd like to get some transparency regarding this new cost versus the CREAS estimate.
If I can just interject there, the CREAS estimate of 388 did include a fair amount of contingency.
20%.
20%, so it was hard for us to imagine how it went from 388 to 500,000 without, is this more contingency, is this an additional, it was just not clear.
Yeah, there's answers to all your questions,
Okay.
but I'll wait for you to finish.
Okay, and then we are, again, on our wish list, we really appreciate some expedited staff action on this in order to reduce the risk to us with regards to increased engineering costs over time. That's the end of my presentation. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And, yeah.
Lynn, it sounds like you have some specific comments on some of the numbers. Yep. I'll start with that.
Well, I'll talk about benefiting properties to start with. First off, I was unaware that Bowen communicated designated properties to you in the past, but the principle we used was the properties, typically it's the properties who have frontage on the way that would fit, because some of those that are, I think you highlighted at least one that I observed, doesn't actually front the road, and that dedicated rights of way or easement technically should be acquired if the service was going to would be extended to that. It'll have to be a municipal decision as to whether the municipality would want to deal with such a right of way and consider that public, or whether that's just more of a negotiated between property deals to allow private service to extend through that. So in terms of properties that don't have frontage, that'll have to be a decision by the municipality. So that's why that one or others were excluded. With respect to the lots that currently have service, I believe they're still beneficiaries, because we're not talking about maintaining that through service, but taking that out of service and providing a connection to an improved system, which would also include fire protection.
Yes.
So they are beneficiaries. I appreciate it's a gray area, but again, that's the background to that, and something that the municipality will also have to talk through. The reason it was extended, and it now links to the cost question, the original inquiry took the water main extension to the bend in the road.
Can I go back?
Yeah, I'll go back to the figure. So the original cost was from that connection point to the intersection.
Okay.
But we felt that if we're doing this and going down the route that we propose, the line would be extended to here.
Okay.
To ensure proper connection to these folks. So the cost increase is simply a scaling of length.
Yeah.
You scaled it from that length to the total length up to there.
And that's where we get to the 500,000?
And that's the basis.
Okay,
of the 500,000.
that, we actually sort of figured that was the case. Just going back to the currently connected properties and the benefit that they will have, I would just like to put out there proportionality of benefit, that idea. So yes, they all have improved fire service, but they've already got the benefit of established water service. So it's just a proportionality. So there is allowance in the Act for the waiving or reduction of the parcel tax, so that the currently connected properties could have that either waived or a reduced parcel tax. And then the costs are proportioned among the total number of benefiting properties. So there is that.
But that opens the door for others to say, you know, based on the size of property or water use, that there's different benefits they receive. I'm not sure how that would work, but Murray, you might have some background on this.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really valid point. If there's a chance that the whole thing's going to be defeated because of the people that already have water, and if you say to them, look, it's going to cost you, $50,000, $30,000, whatever it is, it makes perfect sense to come up with a number to say, okay, to be equitable, because these people already have water, the benefit to them by putting in the new line is X number of dollars, right? It's $10,000, it's $15,000, it's whatever it is. That comes off the $510,000 total that the rest of them are splitting. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. You either have water or you don't.
Yeah.
How big your lot is kind of irrelevant. You know what I mean?
A house is a house, first of all.
Yeah, I mean, people can come up with all kinds of things, but it doesn't mean that we would accept it. I think we would accept it. And it's an improvement to our system to get rid of that 2-inch line. I mean, we do have to, we have a temporary line on our system that we should be replacing with a permanent one in the fullness of time. Right, and so after 20 years of it, or which will probably what it will be before this thing actually happened, there's a reason.
I don't think they
for
want
it.
to wait 20 years for it.
But you know what I'm getting at, it was put in 1992, and it will be, sorry, it'll be 30 years. Yeah, right. You know, so it may be getting closer to the end of its effective life. Bob never did like that 2-inch line being there. So what I'm getting at is I think some flexibility should be shown to help this thing go through, rather than taking a very rigid position that will cause it to be defeated.
I think another, to that point as well, in order to have a petition that we can actually go ahead with, that decision kind of has to be made.
Mm-hmm.
It should be included in the petition, I think.
Oh, it has to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're kind of we have to get some clarity on that going forward.
One background question, what does the 50% plus 50% actually mean from a petition?
A petition, in order to be certified as valid and sufficient, and I'm just quoting the act here, has to include 50% of the total number of properties in the designated.
Have to respond?
They have to respond positively.
Have to respond, yes. And then those 50% have to account for 50% or more of the assessed value of the properties.
Okay, interesting.
And in our case, this is also a little bit more complicated than when you're working at a larger municipality, because we will also have to go for a approval of borrowing by council to fund this, because in other municipalities, typically your reserves would be at a level where you can internally borrow from your reserves and repay them back over the life of the infrastructure. We're not in that position in Cove Bay, so council would have to approve a borrowing, and we would have to go through the municipal borrowing process as well.
In terms of the municipal next steps in this overall process, Raj, can you speak to that at all? Like where's the...
So the next steps in this would be...
Or Patrick, I should say.
Yeah, would be, we've actually got the estimated cost. So it's the issue of the allocation of cost. Right now, they've been allocated evenly to all the properties to go out with a petition. We're just seeking legal clarification in terms of exactly what Murray had said, the ability to be able to, if there are parties that, to apportion it differently. So once we have an opinion on that, we should be able to get the petition. I mean, the petition is prepared in-house for the people who are lobbying for it to take it out to the residents and then bring it back. So the next steps would be actually to finalize that process, have the petition go out, and if it's signed by 51% of the parties, or 51%, the corporate officer would actually I can't remember the legal terminology, we go through and determine its validity, and then we would prepare a report to council as to where we're at for, and for borrowing, essentially, so that.
And the schedule for the legal opinion and the kind of work on the petition is that
It's
it?
in process, we should have that in very soon.
I mean, my suggestion, and obviously it's a point of discussion for the committee members, is to receive this as information, but given that there's some technical issues, some costing issues and things like that, that I wouldn't call ourselves very familiar with, it's better just to take this information and not to try to, I know the timeline is important to you, but I don't think it's appropriate for the committee to kind of have a motion either supporting or not supporting or providing direction at this time.
Understood.
And we understood that. We thought this was more informational for
It
you
is,
than
yeah.
anything else.
I had a couple of questions, just on the insurance front, is these lots today, I presume they pay more for their insurance because they're on wells, is that
Some,
correct?
some of the connected properties, or not connected properties do, because they're more than 500 meters from a hydrant. Some are within,
Okay, depending
so
on the
they're
geography.
okay.
And that's probably the same difference between the connected and non-connected ones, just depending on where they are relative to that
Yeah.
hydrant.
Now, the slide at the very beginning showed the red line of the proposal, and essentially, anybody who fronts on that is within the distance to be considered fire protected. So it's the ones to the north on the extension down Ocean View Road that won't be.
Okay. And the second question I had was the $10,000 connection fee, Cove Bay Water, where is that in the numbers? Is that included in the 510, or is that,
I don't.
that's
think
not
so.
included, so,
That's the front of the street onto the property.
yeah, is that presumed waived, or is that?
No, that's the,
No.
that's the, sort of the fund we would pay into the amount we would pay into the fund for a capital reserve. And then there's a connection fee as well, that, to put the line in across my property or whatever I have to.
So
But
that's
that's-
separate.
Oh, there's the 10,000 plus a fee,
Yeah.
okay. And that's not included in these numbers we're talking about, but you're aware of it, okay.
I won't say we're happy about it.
No, I just, it's the elephant in the room if you're not aware of it, right? So you don't want to go further down the road and not know.
I just,
Time is an issue, so
just one quick question following up on Ron's. Did I understand that not everybody will be within, there won't be a hydrant that will be close enough to all houses with this?
If the new line goes in, there will be a
Oh,
hydrant
okay,
that's
got it,
close.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
that's one of the reasons here.
Clint, and one final point, perhaps we could talk sometime about the matter of crossing easements, because, like, from our perspective, we know who's who,
Yeah,
and it's not an issue from our end, so. Yeah, okay,
But it's,
yeah.
Patrick now.
Patrick, yeah.
But it is an issue potentially
Yeah.
because lot owners change hands, right? And this municipality doesn't want to take responsibility for infrastructure that they don't have a rights of way on. So
Okay.
there is things
Yeah.
we need to think in perpetuity here. So.
Understood,
Yeah.
yeah. So maybe we could get together sometime and just look at the easements and things that are on the properties.
Sure. If I could
Okay.
just try to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we could probably support this in principle, and recommend the staff proceed to work with the people, you know what I mean? Rather than, because it's in principle, right? It's not, when the final numbers come in, when the final thing is made, we do reserve the right to not support it if there's a surprise in it. But at this point, I think we want to expand the system, we want to get rid of the 2-inch line. I mean, this is all the sort of thing we're supposed to be doing. Providing.
Yeah, I mean, my preference is to really keep it as an information item until we get clarity on some of the petition issues and things like that. I mean, I totally understand about the expansion and replacing temporary services that were around for 25 years with permanent service. That makes a lot of sense, but I'm not sure is it appropriate for the committee to provide support.
Well, I guess if I got asked at council, if this comes forward, what does the committee think? It would be nice to be able to say that the committee's supportive of proceeding. I mean, I don't think you're, of continuing with the work or something, so you're not saying, let's go or not go, we're saying, for support of the carrying on.
I would support a motion along the lines of what Marie
Yeah.
was suggesting.
And just one other point I want to make is, I think that we should try to take some direction from the proponents of the thing as to what the proportion of the already connected lots would be, because we don't want to arbitrarily set a number that sabotages their efforts. Right, at the end of the day, if this whole thing goes sideways, if they say, well, they said we had to charge those people $80,000 each, you know, sort of thing. I think if you have a number, if you within the people that are promoting this.
I think we're waiting on some legal.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
As well.
But I'm just suggesting that the committee
Yeah.
would be taking direction from staff. And also that we would suggest that staff get input from the proponents of the project as far as how you divvy up benefit. That's all.
Okay.
Do you have a motion to propose that?
Sure, so this is Allison.
Oh,
you could-
Steph's
or
going.
Steph's
I just said that
already.
the committee support the petition of Upper Ocean View residents to improve the infrastructure.
Support in principle.
Support in principle.
Petition of the like the Upper Ocean View residents, is that what
Yeah.
you call it?
Close
Yeah.
enough.
In principle.
Is there anything proceeding with the petition, because it's not the petition itself, or is it?
Support the proceeding of the petition?
Well, proceed.
I think it's just the project we're talking
Yes,
about.
right. Proceeding.
Yeah, with the project, rather, or is it the petition?
I mean, there's lots of pieces to the
Yeah.
project, so let's, I think just,
Support the project of the Upper
Yeah,
Ocean View
sure.
residents. In
Expansion of the
principle.
water line.
Sorry, is it improving infrastructure, replacing infrastructure, creating new infrastructure?
Upgrading infrastructure.
To
Upgrading.
upgrading. Operating infrastructure. And did you want to review the benefiting properties as well?
I would try, my suggestion is to avoid
Leave
that.
it.
Stay away from that?
Yeah, we won't,
Yeah.
Okay.
we won't talk about that.
Especially if there's some legal opinions to come on.
Yeah.
Just support the project of Upper Ocean View residents in principle to upgrade operating infrastructure.
Support in principle. Put in principle behind.
Support in principle. Project of Upper Ocean View residents to upgrade operating infrastructure.
Actually, why don't we, I've got a simple one for you. Committee support in, the committee support in principle, the expansion of the Cove Bay water system to Upper Ocean View.
Oh, sounds good.
Thanks, Raj.
So moved. So moved.
Someone second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
There.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, good luck.
And then-
Very quickly.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Sort of
Thank
like,
you.
I'm just getting my.
I'm
my
just getting
ear.
in here.
Thank you.
Did you get your little,
Thanks, Allison, for pointing out the council.
Well,
Find that
it's just that they
useful.
might ask.
Yes.
did you get your,
It is also supporting the municipal policy of replacing temporary infrastructure.
Yes.
Okay, so we're moving on to item 5, which is elections and schedule. So elections of the chair. And say I will not be renewing my membership as chair. I'll continue as a member, but not as chair. I'm looking directly at who I'd like to nominate as chair.
Sure. I do understand.
Anyone, we do vice chair at the same time? Or we do it?
No, you gotta do your vote on the chair.
Okay, does anyone else have any suggestions for chair?
Yeah, I'm certainly open.
Do we actually have a vote then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
mover and seconder.
Does he have to leave the room?
Okay.
Nope.
I think I'm.
Because they leave the building, so we like to
I think
keep
I'm
them
by
here.
Then Maurice
acclamation.
Fields, become chair of Cove Supervisor Committee.
Mover?
I'll move back
Okay,
Vote? All in favor?
There,
Yay.
before he runs away.
so does
Yeah.
that,
Okay.
does that take effect immediately or next meeting?
Okay, you wanna just do it next time?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. I think that's
If it was
how, I
left
think it
to,
normally works, we do it's the next meeting, isn't it?
It depends on the situation.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep you there though.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Vice chair.
You're not gonna run for vice chair?
I can, I mean, I would, but I mean, it's also time for, I mean, you get their opportunities.
Well, somebody just walked in the room.
Okay, I know they Ron.
Tiny's a little too savvy for that one. Her first and last name. Yeah, I'll certainly let you do it.
Okay.
Murray?
Yeah.
Motion to nominate Tom Cliff as vice chair. Seconded, all in favor?
Passed unanimously.
Thank you. Well, that's going to be a good team. Okay. Moving on to action item 6, which is the review of
Oh,
action
schedule.
items.
It was a schedule. I don't know, you guys don't always make a schedule in advance, but
Schedule for, I think we won't do that. We'll have, it's usually the last item of our meeting is to
Okay.
pick the next date, so we won't do a full year schedule. I don't think that's going to be effective for us. Again, item 6 is review the action items from previous meetings. So Steph, is that in our?
Page 9. Oh, it's all Glenn and staff.
oh, yeah, there aren't very many.
Is it just that one?
Aren't the annual reports, included on the website under E? Don't you post all the annual
They're
reports to Vancouver
posted,
Coastal
yes.
Health?
Yeah,
Yeah,
They-
so there isn't anything, and that includes the chlorine levels and THMs in that report anyhow?
it does include,
It
yes.
does
So it's all
always
there,
include,
so
yeah.
it's
So
not-
what was the,
I
what
think
was
they
the?
was highlighting this for the water page on the website.
When it means the VCH section, coastal health section, what was, when do you remember what this was about? I'm sounding vague.
So in the Vancouver Coastal Health Report, there's a section on the THMs and HAAs, and I think you guys wanted to make sure that that bit was highlighted and put on the website so people could
What's the
not have to dig through.
What's the FAQ section of the website?
Of the water,
Oh, I see, to kind of extract the guidance that.
extract that and make it really clear to people what kind of
And
chemicals
was
are in the
that-
water.
Or was that when you were doing FAQs when we were doing the referendum on the borrowing?
No.
No.
This is, we had a public meeting and it was brought up by one of the,
That's exactly what it was.
one of the people using the system saying, if those things are carcinogenic, we should know how much there is.
And we,
Excuse me, so we said, yeah, we'll put it on the website. So people
yeah, we
can check
felt
out.
it was quite a technical issue to deal with from the staff level, so that VCH's direction on that should be highlighted instead.
Yeah.
Okay, so the actual annual report is posted on the website.
All the
so
data's
you want-
there, but it's kind
You
of.
wanted something
Yeah.
special.
Buried.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, it's also, again, hard to understand what
Yeah.
yeah.
those levels actually mean.
So
So
I
we-
just checked with Sophie before the meeting, and she said that no one had talked to her about it, and
Okay,
I'm
we'll
not in a
just-
position to be asking Sophie to do things
We'll
like that.
include, we'll include it as an action item then.
Yeah.
Leave it there, then it's not done.
Maybe Patrick, do you want to take that off?
Well,
as-
yeah, if
Yeah.
that's something that we've committed to do,
Or
we
Annette,
haven't,
yeah.
then we should.
I mean, it needs that little book, like, what are these things and what does coastal
Yeah.
health?
Yeah, it's not a big deal, it's just asking Sophie to do it and giving her the report.
It should probably go up on all the water systems that have surface water systems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
across the board, basically.
Yeah, like Hood Points and, don't know who else is
Eagle-
got.
Eagle Cliff.
And then the second action item that was ensure that Cove Bay water system communications are included with water bills, has that changed in terms of,
That's been ongoing in it, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to take it off?
yeah, if it's been a
It's-
new
It's
process?
routine, it's
It's
done.
routine, yeah?
Okay,
Okay.
take it off then.
Here's the page, I just got that on the website, that's Cove Bay Water System page. So they're chlorine and,
Can you click on that here?
yeah.
There's a big page from
Okay.
that explains.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, well,
So
that's,
it's
that's
there,
what we,
it's done.
yeah, so it is
Why
done.
should I know then? I called her at,
The
what I
values are only in the report, but
Oh.
the explanation.
That's what we
behind
wanted,
the
this
coastal
piece.
health has been there for a long time.
So it's the values, are you?
Oh, yeah, there they are too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was this one up from
So I guess what isn't on the report is what the Cove Bay levels are.
No, that's Cove Bay.
That's Cove Bay, and it ends in 2017.
Okay.
But the annual reports have the data, I mean, there's reams of data on these
So
things.
you want to update
Okay,
it.
so it is there as a specific, so we can check
so we're
that
just-
off.
I would
that
say
we've
check it
done
off,
that,
yeah.
Don't you want to put more recent information?
Well, it can be updated, yeah, but I mean, that,
Yeah.
So maybe just follow up on updating?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at that. And now we'll just familiarize the committee with all this information that's on our website.
yeah, it's like, see, good work, staff.
Homework for the next meeting, read the website before we come.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, on to new business. So we have two items, the 2020-2024 capital budget followed by the 2020 operating budget, the 5-year and the 1-year. Roger, turn it over to you.
Actually, I'm gonna turn it over to Patrick and Glenn, because
Okay.
I kind of compiled all of their information and put it together here, but they would be able to better
Okay.
speak to the projects that are listed on the,
Sorry, Raj, is there a
Cove
presentation?
Bay.
Did I get a presentation?
Is there a PowerPoint?
I didn't do a PowerPoint, it's on page 10 of everybody's agenda items. It's the 5-year capital plan.
And just noting, we're about 10 minutes behind our schedule now, so we'll try to catch up a little bit.
Okay. My understanding is that discussion of the water treatment plant is supposed to be in a closed meeting.
That will be, yeah,
Yeah.
10:30 onward, so,
Talk
We
about
can
that.
talk about that
yeah.
then. The Cardina Road water main tie-ins, there was a section of asbestos cement line that was replaced in conjunction with the Cardina Road project, and those, the tie-ins to that new line still have to be made this year.
So there's
And-
2 lines under the road right now then? The old one and the new one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then relocating the PRV on Cardina Drive. It's similar, right?
Yeah, that's a historic PRV that's currently trespassing on private property, and the property owner has asked for it to be relocated because he has intent to build a fence on his property line that would conflict with the PRV.
Full disclosure, I'm the angry neighbor.
Oh, we can dump that.
This has been going on a while, since 2006.
So that's really finishing that project from last year. There's a $10,000 item for
It's a catch-all.
breaking things that fix, fixing things that break, which is not very much. That's what we've included. There is, and this amount that's shown here under the Water Systems Master Plan, we had some feedback on that with the meeting we had with the other LACs. We know it's something that we need to do as an island. We need to look at developing a master plan that looks at the sustainability of water sources, looks at rate structures and governance structures, and looks at infrastructure. It's part of an asset management plan. What is the capital maintenance and capital replacement for the infrastructure that we have? We're going to be proceeding with that in a phased approach, probably focusing more on the infrastructure aspects this year, and the way that's, the way the costs of that are distributed might vary from this as well. I believe Raj just took the overall cost estimate for the entire water system master plan and divided it up by number of connections. There was not a lot of support for that approach in the last LAC meeting. I'm not sure. We may have to look at something like that when we're talking about island-wide issues, source water sustainability, when we're talking about infrastructure management and asset management, then maybe we're looking at the water systems individually. So we haven't got a plan yet for exactly how this is going to move forward. We've asked Glenn to produce a draft terms of reference for the overall study, and from there we're going to look at how we proceed with that, what aspects we're going to be working on in 2020, and what work is going to be deferred to 2021. One of the issues with the Cove Bay system is relating to, the reserves in light of expenditures on the water treatment plant. So we may be limited in what we're able to do this year.
I mean, there was I've received some emails, that we weren't participants in the overall meeting for local advisory committees on this topic, so this was kind of, sort of the background I had was from emails to the chairs, and there was concern that this was deferring infrastructure upgrades and sort of more focused on planning and assessment than getting down to the actual projects that need to be done. Is that, I presume there's a balance between infrastructure work and infrastructure planning work that's still underway.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of critical infrastructure work that's underway, and that's not going to change. We know that we need to get to a place where we're planning more of our infrastructure upgrades and replacements and maintenance, and reacting less. And it's always a little bit difficult to convince people that it's, in the long run, it's beneficial to invest in planning. And I think I didn't get that it was opposition to the idea that we need a water system master plan.
I think they were all generally supportive of, they need to know the state of their systems and what work needs to be done. But Hood Point, for example, has the bathymetry of their lake, so they weren't interested in paying for aquifer testing in Blue Water and King Edward Bay. So that was, the same sort of thing the other way around. So I think that was, and I guess the other sort of skepticism is there's a couple of the systems where planning reports have been done about work that should be done, and it's just sat there. So they don't want another plan done and no action on the report that was already done that needs to be actioned.
And part of the planning work would be compiling what has been done. I mean, there's no intention to reinvent anything that's already been done. And it may be that it was envisioned originally, which is where these budget numbers came up from, as a water system master plan for Bowen Island. And it's looking like we may be breaking that up into components. So, it may be that we have we need to have an aquifer study of the aquifer that serves Bowen Bay, Blue Water, and King Edward Bay systems. And that may be separate from a study looking at Grafton Lake in more detail and along range sustainability of that source.
Yeah, I mean, a few points. Water is the most local thing you can have. Water is not, you don't master plan water like you do recreation. You can't, every part of the island is a different situation, a totally unique situation. And the people who have problems with water always say, we're all in this together. And the people who have no problems say, no, we're not. Right? I mean, it's just, it's the nature of it. I think that given the constraints on our reserves this year, and the number of reports that we already have as far as our watershed studies, our conservation reports, we've got a pile this high of studies that are still absolutely applicable today, except that our population hasn't increased. So we can go to what they said we should be doing in 2010 relating to the population of the day. So I mean, most people, instead of reading all these studies, say, we need a new study, right? I would really suggest that we just take that number and knock it down to like $10,000 and look at getting this year some much better focus on exactly what would apply to our water system in coming years. And don't strain our reserves at all this year.
Yeah,
You
we're
know?
obviously in a tight spot with money. I mean, at the same time, when you see, 162,000 for Cove Bay, relative to the cost of the water treatment plant, is just what, obviously it's the biggest ticket of water-based infrastructure on Bowen Island, but it just goes to show you, what good planning is necessary to kind of support upgrading projects and saving money in the long run. So, I mean, I personally support the idea of island-wide planning, partially because, as issues we've talked about in the past, Cove Bay gets used by all island residents, but it's paid for by the people within that catchment. That's just one example of sort of governance issues within island water. But at the same time, I do agree with Murray that this is not the year to be undertaking that, particularly for Cove Bay, when what the next item we're going to be looking at, or one of the items we're looking at, is how we actually pay for that water treatment plant.
If I saw that item in 2022, I would be more open-minded about it.
Very good.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, just some brief comments, just as background and some commentary. There are lots of studies, some are better studied than others, water systems. They're very operational, and they talk about pipes and projects, and there's no question there, and the intent of a master plan is absolutely to not redo things that are, we want to draw on as much information as currently available. The placeholder of master plan admittedly does not take full account of all those historic studies yet. I think certainly, bar none, the largest motive of doing a master plan that is completely void in all historic studies is about source water and sustainable water supply long-term with the influence of climate change, with the influence of community growth. That's the primary purpose of the master plan. I've now lived through depleted systems and water crises. I don't think those issues are necessarily going away unless it's very well thought, and I respect your comment, but about the differences of the water systems, but I disagree with it. I think the need is to look at water supply and its resources across the island and make a proper planning decision about how water as a collective is effectively distributed across the island based on population distribution and demand distribution, with consideration of climate change, with consideration of development growth, to ensure that all systems have sustainable water supply. These water systems do not operate on LAC boundaries. So that's just my...
And will that planning study also address sort of the billing structure, the governance structure of water as well? Because that's been, for Cove Bay, that's been an issue for a number of years.
It's a couple other comments, observations from my perspective is that, yes, that is a contentious issue. My big belief is that we need to think through water supply, water distribution, and the collective operation of water systems, which then should inform the governance structure. There's also a desire for more uniformity in billing. What's an acceptable? I think it's going to also, doing an account of what's a sustainable water supply, and therefore what is the appropriate water distribution or allocation of water. The allocation right now is very high, in my opinion, and the building structure doesn't support conservation. So all those elements will be and should be considered.
Well, that's great context, but to Patrick and Roger, what is the next steps in this? It sounds like you were actually, based on the comments you received from other local advisory committees, you're sort of reviewing how you proceed with this.
Yeah, that's right.
So is it appropriate that we still have a budget item at this point when it's uncertain how this will proceed?
Would it be better to have a small amount in the current year for doing the terms of reference and looking at what's already out there and then figuring out what else needs to be done, and then the bulk of the work at least a year out? Not having it all in this year's budget?
Yeah, well, definitely not all in this year's budget, and Raj and I talked about, well, what we, are we cutting it in half, are we putting in $20,000? Yeah, we're still
Just phase
figuring
approach,
out
what does it mean?
what makes the most sense in terms of what we're able to afford, and with the reserves that we have and other priorities for capital work, and also staff resources, what we're able to take on. And I agree that there's the bulk of this will likely be deferred into 2021 likely. I don't think we want to defer it too far, but it is important that, as Glenn mentioned, there's a couple of water systems were in crisis last year. There's some urgent capital work to address those particular situations, but it's indicative of a bigger issue that needs to be tackled more comprehensively. And we should be in a position to have some of Glenn's thoughts from his time here in the form of a draft terms of reference that then we'll be able to translate into a work plan.
So we've got a $300,000 budget for the whole thing, so what I'm hearing is maybe 50,000 max for this year, and the other 250 is the following year.
Right, and then take our share of the 50 max for this year.
Yeah, which would be
So-
Which is
25.
roughly half.
Well, something like 20,000.
Roger.
Yeah, I think Patrick and I will work on what the appropriate 2020, 2021 allocation is.
Okay.
But that being said, we'll also take a look at the allocation as well, because one of the other points that was raised that we haven't talked about is it's an island-wide master study that does encompass properties that are not part of the existing water system, so people who are on wells and whatnot, so we had not taken into consideration allocation. So that would be something that needs to be borne by all taxpayers, or a portion of the cost needs to be borne by all taxpayers on the island.
So how do we manage it from the point of view of this year's operating budget?
So I think what we'll do is we'll take your feedback and we'll discuss it with Patrick, and we'll, if that's what Patrick wants to do, we'll parcel it out between 2020 and 2021 and put a scope, a more detailed scope to the 2020 work with the 5-year financial plan request for 2020 that'll go forward to council, if that's acceptable to the committee.
So at this point, we don't need to provide any specific direction. It's basically an in-process item that staff is working on at this time then?
Or you could put something in the minutes that you would
If you want to
favor
provide some
it being
Yeah.
split between the 2 years, planning and.
Yeah, I think we should put a hard number on $20,000 and call it a day.
For
Right,
this
we
next
don't
year.
have the money, we don't want to leave this going to council without our input, right? If we just hand it back to Raj and Patrick, any number can appear in there. And I think we're, given our financial situation, we want that to be a small number. And let's just do it.
So if the recommendation says that the committee recommends to council that the capital initiatives for 2020 as presented at this meeting be included in the 5-year financial plan, with the exception of 300K water system master plan, to be reduced to 20,000?
Yeah, the
There's 162.
162,000 reduced to
Their number.
20,000.
Oh, sorry, that was
Yeah.
in there.
And that's, I mean, I'm pulling that number out of the air, but I think it's a fair number.
Yeah,
So that would be,
makes sense.
on an island-wide basis, that would be $37,000.
40
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
But the first year is just gonna be somebody figuring out, really, it's gonna be a philosophical thing. Do we wanna pump water across the island to other things? I mean, this is a huge, huge discussion. If we get into it now, we'll be here all bloody day. So,
What do we do that again?
So, that the committee,
There's a resolution on the agenda.
yeah, so
she's
it's all
just
that's
amending it.
there. Capital initiatives for 2020 as presented at this meeting be included in the five-year financial plan, with the exception of $162,000 water system master planning, which
Be
should
reduced
be
to.
reduced to $20,000 for, what's the, for planning, for identify terms of
Preliminary
reference?
steps in master.
Terms of
No,
Terms of reference?
I mean,
preliminaries.
we want to leave it open-ended.
Yeah,
But,
he's like-
yeah, preliminary planning work.
On the island-wide
Yeah,
master.
On
plan.
island-wide,
master plan. We can tidy it up a little bit, we know what we need.
okay.
I would suggest
What?
an appropriate word might be a scoping study.
Oh.
A
Scoping study to
Or
support,
scoping work, yeah.
scoping study to support the water systems master plan. The island-wide water systems master plan.
When you put the word scoping in, people sometimes say, shouldn't cost that much to come up with a scope. But we know what we mean, right?
So operating budget.
So do you have a mover and a second for
I
that?
think there was, there
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, so moved.
was
All in
two
favor?
other items that,
Oh.
Oh,
in the
on
capital
the capital
budget.
plan.
One
Oh, yeah.
was looking
I
at.
think we should keep this, let's call that A then, and move that as a specific motion.
Oh,
The motion is saying that you support the whole
Yeah.
budget.
oh, so you want to break it down and just do the bit with respect to
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
the,
All in favor of,
just the clause you added as a separate motion.
Yeah,
yeah,
Okay.
all in favor?
yes. Okay, done.
Yeah.
Unanimous, thank you.
Okay. So there's more on the capital projects that we're approving?
Well, there's a couple more, yeah. There's a
More placeholders.
new main line, new main line and water meter replacements. I guess it's just another placeholder for
Hmm.
meters that need to be worked on or replaced. And then the only other item in 2020 was one of the vehicles, public works vehicles needs to be replaced, that the utilities crews use, and that was split up between the water systems.
Didn't we spend 22,000 in 2018 on that?
There was a vehicle that was replaced last year, or in 2019, I believe.
Yeah.
So this is an additional vehicle that is end of useful life and needs to be replaced, so.
It's kind of water going from Cove elsewhere, isn't it, with that truck? Giving away Grafton Lake water to our poor
No, this is a
neighbors
big-
to the west, isn't that what's going on
They're
there?
paying the $1.55 a cubic meter.
Hope so. Go ahead, sorry, that's you.
Yeah, just an elaboration on the water meters. A large part of that cost in 2022 is during the water crises in the summer, it's recognized that there's a very large number of out-of-date water meter technology on the island. And it's quite labor intensive. We've had challenges of operators here on island really torn between looking after the system versus the effort to collect data. So through that, this is largely about upgrading residential water meters.
Including Cove?
Yeah, it would be looking at, there are new technologies already out there, but it's looking at a more comprehensive conversion of technology across island. So that's more a business case. We talked about kind of articulating a business case about why make that investment now. So it's considered a placeholder until that business case is formed.
Okay. Steph, can you read the language again of the first bit? So basically, we've covered this off with and then the extra clause around the 20,000. So I think we're fine.
I
And
think
we'll
you're
get an A
done.
or B.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything to add, else to add on that?
No, I think that there's one other item that is a next year project, which is to improve our GIS database. There's a lot of spatial information in there, but not a lot of attribute information, and it ties in with our corporate asset management plan efforts as well, having a proper, ground truth data repository.
So by having that in here, you're not financially committing the Cove Bay water system to those outer year items. They're a placeholder, and then we'll look at them again more carefully next year.
In an operating mode?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
On the operating budget?
Okay, so our operating budget primary changes from last year are the Queen Charlotte Heights parcel tax was paid off in 2019. So we won't be collecting that parcel tax, and correspondingly, we had removed the debt servicing cost associated with that. I'm proposing an increase in rates to fund the upcoming debt servicing for the Cove Bay water system. So in 2020, we're proposing that the fixed rate goes from $615 to $760, which is about just over a 19% increase, and that the variable rate for water consumed over 34 meters goes from, is it $1.15 or $1.05? Oh, $1.10, sorry, from $1.10 to $1.55, which is a just under 30% increase in the variable rate.
To what rate?
$1.55.
To $1.55.
Yes.
And that is still actually, it's kind of reverse of what other municipalities still do, but we're approaching that in that your fixed rate for water based on 34 meters is about $1.85 a cubic meter, and then your excess water is actually cheaper than your base rate.
Yeah.
But it's kind of just...
So you can argue the water's more expensive, but you've already paid for your
Get paid
system
for,
costs.
exactly. But I was just kind of highlighting that. So in terms of user revenue, I totally agree with you. But in terms of user revenue, that should generate an additional $106,500 in user fees in 2020. I put a debt servicing provision of $65,000 because we won't use all of the borrowed proceeds in 2020. We'll dip into them as we ramp up on spending on the water treatment plant, and then the remainder of the debt servicing will go in the following year. So if, for example, I put a budget provision for 65, if our debt servicing cost happens to work out to about 45, the extra 20 will just go into the reserve this year. That's kind of everything I have on the operating budget. There were no other significant changes.
Does anyone have any questions for Raj?
I just had one. Until such time as debt servicing costs are actually incurred, the increased revenue will be placed in the Cove Bay Reserve for capital renewal and replacement. Why is it not going into the reserve for debt payment?
Because it's not, we're building up the rates to build up to be able to service a debt on an ongoing basis. So that won't, for example, if we don't pay any debt costs in 2020, or any debt servicing costs in 2020, they're not going to be cumulative. So you don't need to put the what you raise the funds.
So you're anticipating to need them for maybe the following year.
In
when you
2021.
actually use capital that's,
And our rates will have gone up, so your ongoing rates should be in 2021 at a level to sustain your debt servicing costs, is what I'm anticipating.
But the increase is happening because of debt service.
It is happening because of debt servicing, but if you don't have debt servicing costs in 2020, then you're actually not cumulatively, like, basically what we're doing is we're increasing our revenue by 106,000 this year. Let's say we didn't have any debt servicing costs this year, but next year our debt servicing cost was gonna be 205,000, so I have another increase next year. I will have an additional $205,000
I'm not arguing about the
Yeah.
increase, I'm arguing about what you're
in
doing.
where I'm putting it.
Yeah, because you're gonna have to pay.
Because I'm not gonna need it to pay off the debt.
You're
So that's why I'm
you're
not putting it
gonna
in a
need
debt
to
reserve.
Pay off the debt,
No.
not the interfund borrowing?
Pardon?
The interfund borrowing?
Well, I haven't considered the interfund borrowing at this point in time, and that's a meeting for the closed, that's a subject for the closed meeting, so.
Wow. Oh,
Okay?
Allison, are you okay with that?
no,
Innocent acting.
I don't agree, but that's fine. You guys,
Marie, any questions? You have to follow these
On
numbers.
the operating budget, no, I think the operating budget, it is what it is.
Okay,
When we get to the rates, I want to say something, but on the operating budget, I'm happy to
Rates
move.
are included in the operating budget.
I'm sorry?
but there's a set, we've split it
We
up.
have a separate
Well, should be
recommendation on
split
the
up.
user rates.
C is the
Oh,
So-
sorry.
user rates.
So I
Okay,
move-
so do we have a motion to support the
operating
operating
budget,
budget?
yes.
Okay,
I so moved.
seconded, all in favor? Okay, item C is, Cove Bay recommends council, the water rates, or water system user rates amendment bylaw 408. Who's gonna speak to the background of that?
I will. Actually, rates haven't been adjusted since 2016. The current rate for water in Cove Bay is $615 a year for the fixed rate for consumption up to 34 cubic meters. Is it a month? I just,
It's that is
quarterly.
calculated
Yeah.
per month,
per
like
month,
in the
on
bylaw.
the average
Yeah.
of 34 cubic meters per month. We are actually recommending that the fixed rate go from $615 to $760, which is about just under 20%, and that the variable rate be increased from $1.10 to $1.55, which is about 29%.
We should have done these in the other order. Should have done this first and then budget second. Because we've already approved the use of those.
The only point I wanted to make on this is I would suggest maybe we, instead of charging people 3 times a year, charge them 4 times a year. So we take it down to $190, so you're getting a $205 bill now, you'll get a $190 bill, but you will get one more every year.
Actually, there's meter reading and billing
yeah.
cycles.
So we only read the meters 3
3
times a year?
times a year.
Oh, okay, fair enough. So if it's gonna make a difference
Yeah,
in cost.
It's going to be-
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I was also gonna say, administratively, part of what the Water Master Study will do is take a look at governance structure, and we would like to eventually kind of consolidate all of our billings so that they're consistent, but, so suggest
That's
that
billing
we,
structure, not
yeah.
government.
Well,
We can
we
change
take a
billing
look at
structure.
billing structure as part of that, too, yeah.
Yeah, part and parcel.
Okay.
Okay, I don't think we,
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I'm interested in how much money more it would actually cost us to do it one more time a year. Because in sending out the bills, we also have the chance of communication, right? So we can keep everybody apprised of why their bill is what it is. But I mean, there are people to whom, you know, I can't afford $50,000, but I can afford $500 a month, right? Sort of thing. There are people that live from one paycheck to the next. That when that 205 goes up to 265 or whatever it's going up to, they'll notice it.
But the other way of dealing with it is, which, you know, I'm used to from other places I've been, is you get a bill, you pay in advance, and then you get you can pay it over 4 months or whatever, but, so you can pay, you know, set up a payment system where people want to pay quarterly or something, just pay the money in, not have to actually render a bill. You estimate, and then you render your bill at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, they've paid you know.
Yeah, okay. I'm adding something
$50
that's
a
too
month.
complicated for us to get into.
There's also a subtle rate effect if you change the billing cycles. Then, like, right now, May to August, those are your big use months. That's why you get a lot of excess revenue. If we were to make it quarterly, like, therefore go April to June, and, you know, there'd be a lot more people using up to their 34 cubic meters a month, and therefore there'd be a lot less excess revenue. So there'd be a revenue issue.
I think we need a water systems master plan.
July, August, September are three-figure.
Yeah, but
Okay, I don't think we,
Over and more. It's debatable. Anyway,
Yeah.
I won't waste any more time on it, sorry.
yeah. We move this as a motion then?
Sure.
Moved, seconded, all in favor?
Are you projecting it going up in future years, Rod?
There'll be another increase
So
next
that's
year
going
as
to be
well.
in the 5-year plan, there's going to be
Yeah.
a revenue increase will
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Okay, item 8, over to you, Patrick, for just the operations update on what's going on in the building.
Well, since I've been here, starting the end of January, most of my efforts with the Cove Bay water system have been focused on the treatment plant project. There is one other problematic asbestos cement pipe that needs to be replaced, and we'll be making plans for completing that this year. There's quite a bit of...
Where is it?
It's just getting my bearings here. It's in Kevin's yard. You know where Kevin Taves lives, along
Miller Road.
Miller Road. Yeah, there's a section there that's been leaking and been giving staff problems. So we need to address that, and we need to build the water treatment plant. Those are, that's the main focus.
What's this lake level water meter?
Well, that's something that we've started doing in support of the upcoming water systems master plan. So that is another investment that we would like to make this year, is in data collection, so that when we get to the point of developing our water systems master plan, we have much better data.
So is this automated pressure transducer type monitoring?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so there historically already was a sensor on the upstream side of the heat installed, but the sensor had died and it had been out of service for quite an extended period of time. I worked with Kevin Hayes, bought that one installed recently, so we've now got about 3 or 4 weeks of new data, so it's being collected. I'm also interested, we ultimately do want to be able to measure flow through the system though. That just gives us water level, tells a lot about the lake hydrology. But we need to understand the discharge as well. So we installed recently a sensor on the downstream side of things. Because flow is going to be governed by getting into technical detail. But we're currently installing a sensor on the downstream side as well. One of the things I'll add as well is that our UBC professor and student reached out to us wanting to do a master's study on the hydrology and look at the sustainability of Grafton Lake on Schreier, okay. So I've been working with them, and it's going to be a component. I'm wanting them to tailor the study so that it's not just a master's study, but truly beneficial to the municipality.
Yeah.
So I'm currently working with them. I just received their draft terms of reference last week. So we're going to try to draw on that research to the greatest extent we can to assist with understanding the coping system.
Awesome. Any other specific upgrades and structure?
There probably will be, that's what I'm aware of right now. This is what I
Any
mentioned.
water quality issues, turbidity, chlorination?
Come on, you got another meeting to go to.
Okay, so that's fine. We'll move on to item 9, new business. So we've already discussed 9.1 is the water, island-wide water systems master plan. I don't think that needs any more discussion today. 5.2 is the water treatment plant general overview. Again, we have a closed meeting discussing financial aspects of that, but if you want to speak to the process.
I would suggest we defer that to the closed meeting, just because it's too complicated to
I think
try
the
to
public,
have-
this is the only chance the
I
public
know,
gets
but
this.
to try to mince your words, to choose your words carefully enough that you're not stepping into your closed meeting discussion. It's extremely difficult.
Can you give me the bulleted points so it's covered off in the public portion of the meeting on where we're at in the process in terms of
Yeah.
tendering, things like that?
We've, tender closed, end of January. We got authorization from council on February 24th, proceed with, January 27th, we got authorization from council to proceed with negotiations with the low bidder, who responded to the tender in efforts to reduce cost of the project. We came back to council on February 24th with some recommended changes that significantly reduced the cost of the project and gave us a path forward to implementing the project by March of next year. And that's what we're moving forward with. And I can provide detailed updates in the closed meeting.
Okay. Do we need a motion to move to closed
We
meeting?
do. If you can read it out, it's there.
Okay. That the Cove Bay Local Advisory Committee move to a closed meeting pursuant to section 91K of Community Charter